Hello, this is Rajiv Nalawadi, and today we'll be discussing about Fyodor Dostoevsky, who is a Russian novelist, and he was born in November 11, 1821, in Moscow, Russia. He was known as a novelist, short story writer, essayist, journalist, and widely considered as one of the greatest psychologists in world literature. So Dostoevsky's works, they explore deeply into the human psychology, and this is all the settings in the middle of political, social, and the spiritual atmosphere that existed in the 19th century in Russia, and a variety of philosophical and religious themes that are kind of intertwined together there. And Dostoevsky was a second of the seven children born to the former army general, who later acquired a position at the Marlinsky Hospital for the Poor in Moscow. And sort of this setting influenced Dostoevsky to experience like varied social strata, a diversity that deeply influenced his future writings. So he was introduced to the literature at a very early age through a lot of fairy tales, the legends, and the books by authors such as Cervantes, Goethe, and Schiller. So in 1837, after the death of his mother, Dostoevsky was sent to the military engineering institute, like the Technical Institute in St. Petersburg. And he was successful in engineering, but his heart and his mind was more focused towards literature. And he completed his first novel, Poor Folk, in 1846. So the novel earned him sort of the entry into St. Petersburg literary circles. And his career was disrupted in 1849 when he was arrested for his association with the group known as the Petrashevsky Circle, where Dostoevsky was sentenced to death. But it's good that his sentence was commuted at the last moment to 4 years of exile with a lot of hard work and hard labor in Siberia, which was a very traumatic experience for Dostoevsky. And he faced several personal challenges, and he also, in his career, faced a lot of gambling problems, financial issues, and so on. And they all influenced his works. His most important works were produced in the last 2 decades, like the Notes from the Underground, Crime and Punishment, The Idiot, Demons, and the Brothers Karamazov. I'll be reviewing four of these novels. I'm not going to review the Notes from the Underground today. So these four works, they explore the moral and existential themes, diving deep into the human consciousness, examining the struggles between the reasoning, the doubt, and the faith that we all hold. So Dostoevsky actually married twice, and he had four children. Meanwhile, his health sort of deteriorated in the last few years, and pulmonary emphysema and recurrent seizures was what he was experiencing. He died in 1881 in St. Petersburg at the age of 60, which was sort of good age around those times if we consider the 19th century times, right, anywhere in the world. So despite the many challenges he faced throughout, Dostoevsky's insight was more on the human condition, which is why he was known for his psychological exploration through most of his novels. And we'll see in the novels that we go through today how he has left that legacy on both the Russian and the world literature. So the first novel we'll be going over is The Brothers Karamazov. So The Brothers Karamazov is set in the 19th century of Russia. The novel sort of revolves around the tumultuous relationship in the Karamazov family. And the Karamazov family has Fyodor Pavlovich Karamazov. He's sort of a very mean and vulgar man, and he's a selfish landowner, and he's the dad, right? And he marries twice and has three sons from the first wife, and they are Dmitry, Ivan, and Alyosha, and the fourth son is with the second wife. So all his four sons are with different temperament and ideology. So they reflect the broader conflicts and the moral debates of their time. Dostoevsky is going to use these as the characters, right? And Dmitri, the eldest son, he's in a bitter rivalry with his father over the inheritance, and they are also not just over inheritance, but they have the infatuation with the same beautiful woman, Grushenka, both the father and Dmitri. So Ivan is the intellectual middle brother, known for his philosophical skepticism, and he's also penned the Grand Inquisitor poem, which challenges the justice of God. And Alyosha is the youngest, and he's the most spiritual and disciple of the elder monk father Josima. He's representing faith and compassion. Meanwhile, Pavel Smerdakov, who is widely considered to be Fyodor's illegitimate son, serves as the dark and cynical counterpoint to these other brothers, the three of them with the first wife. So Dmitri is the child of Fyodor's first wife, right? And he returns back to claim an inheritance that has been left by his mother, and that leads into a conflict with his father. And as the father and son are both in love, and also the father doesn't want to give up any of his inheritance. Besides, he's also loving this. This young woman Grushenka, and Dmitri, meanwhile, was in love with Katerina, who is the first love, but now he's more attracted to Grushenka, so he abandons Katerina. So the novel is structured around the murder of the father that Dmitri commits, and Fyodor Pavlovich and the subsequent trial of Dmitri. And in this case, father has been killed, so it's a patricide, and that's what Dmitri has to be tried against. So Ivan, the coldly intellectual son, he grapples with a lot of the philosophical ideas about morality and the soul. So Alyosha is the kind and the faithful son who studies at this monastery under Josima. So Dimitri's trial, the guilty verdict has to happen, and that's what awaits him in the novel, right? And Ivan falls ill, and Katerina, who is the first fiancée of Dimitri, nurses him, and there is some triangular love conditions, and it's not simple as well. You'll have to read the novel to understand really what is happening there. And Alyosha overcomes the trials and delivers a hopeful speech at a young friend's funeral, emphasizing kind of the shared kindness. And sort of, you can look at that as sort of the novel ending, right? And the mystery serves as a framework around this murder and the trial of Dmitri, as a framework for Dostoevsky to dive deeply into the philosophical discussions about the nature of God and the problem of evil and the freedom of overall human will that exists in everyone. And the free will. And each character embodies different aspects of philosophical debates, with sort of Ivan's existential doubts and Alyosha's spiritual purity that forming sort of the crux of novel's moral and ethical inquiries. So through all of this, Dostoevsky is sort of exploring the humanity's capacity for doing great evil and great goodness, two ends of the spectrum, right? We are capable of doing either end of the spectrum, and it's up to us, and that's where the free will comes along. So it's sort of a deeper exploration of the society around that time and the quest for what humanity is capable of and what we are all capable of. That's what Dostoevsky is psychologically diving deeper into to through all his characters in the novel. Brothers Karamazov is a wonderful, wonderful read. And The Idiot is the second novel that we'll be covering today. The Idiot itself, the story centers around Prince Lev Meshkin. He's a young man He's very open, very simple, very compassionate, and virtually very, very pure, right? And that earns him, sort of earns him that titular moniker of the idiot. He's the idiot, and in this overall cynical and socially stratified society of 19th century Russia, the prince is returning after spending 4 years in a Swiss clinic for treatment of this of his idiocy. For him being so simple, he has been treated for idiocy, and epilepsy is what's being referred to. And he returns to Petersburg, St. Petersburg, after attending this sanatorium kind of an institution. There, once he arrives in Petersburg, he becomes acquainted with the Epanchin family. That includes General Epanchin, his wife, Elizaveta Prokofyevna, and their three daughters, Alexandra, Adelaida, and Aglaya. So Prince Mishkin finds himself quickly entangled in a complex tangle, which is sort of love triangles and the familial disputes that are there and the societal expectations around him. So his innocence and naivety draws people to him, yet it also leads to many underestimating him and manipulating him to do many things. And this whole narrative revolves around Mishkin's relationship with two women, which is Nastasia Filipovna and Aglaya Epanchin. And Nastasia Filipovna is a beautiful but troubled woman who has been deeply hurt by a past. She has like uh, a very intricate past that basically because of her exploitative guardian, Trotsky, and she embodies the chaotic, destructive forces of society. And meanwhile, there is these things challenging Mishkin's ideals that he comes with. And Aglaya is the youngest and most beautiful of the Epanchin daughters, and she represents sort of the purity and innocence, and that Mishkin is drawn towards her, but struggles to reconcile with the darkness he encounters in others and also himself. So Dostoevsky is sort of delving into various philosophical discussions that are reflecting on the themes of human suffering, the morality, and the role of the beautiful and the lofty that exists in the society. So Mishkin's character is sort of a challenge to the nihilistic tendencies around that time, embodying Dostoevsky's fear that lack of spiritual values could lead to both disaster, both personally and even societally. The tragic unfolding of the events in Idiot highlights like sort of the fragility and the complexity of human relations and the difficulties of maintaining some of these moral ideals in a very corrupt society. If you're too straightforward, too pure, too innocent, it's not good. That's what in the Idiot itself, the narrative goes through in Dostoevsky's overall story. So Mishkin's destiny is catastrophic, and the goodness and the integrity, rather than saving the souls of those around him, they also seem to bring ruin and increase the suffering instead of helping them. So the suffering of others increases. This outcome serves to critique the idea that pure goodness can survive in a society like overwhelmingly when there is ego and material interests that are involved. Pure goodness cannot really sort of survive in such a society, right? And this is the exploration that Dostoevsky sort of does in this novel, The Idiot. Uh, and it's an exploration of the existential dilemmas of life and the study which involves the reality of the expression and what's the real potential of all the human beings as well to do a lot of goodness in the society, but there is some things which prevent us from doing all of that. So life is not simple. It has a lot of dilemmas. That's what this whole novel explores. Crime and Punishment is the other novel that we are going through today. So, Rodion Raskolnikov is the protagonist in this novel, and he's a former student. He's living in poverty in St. Petersburg, and the story really revolves around this protagonist, Raskolnikov's plan. He has a plan to improve his fortunes by murdering a pawnbroker, Alyona Ivanova. And he believes that by eliminating a worthless person and using our money for good deeds, he can justify the crime. And he argues that certain extraordinary people are entitled to transgress moral laws to achieve greater things, an idea he refers to as the extraordinary man theory. And driven by his conviction, Raskolnikov executes his plan. And he also, besides killing Alyona Ivanova, he impulsively kills the pawnbroker's half sister, Elizaveta, who unexpectedly happens to be witnessing the crime. So she has to also go. So the murder does not bring the relief or the financial windfall that Raskolnikov was anticipating. And instead, it plunges him into that psychological crisis and that dilemma, which is marked by confusion, the paranoia, and the disillusionment. He becomes increasingly isolated and struggles with a lot of guilt and fear. As he as he goes through this process, and his mental state kind of deteriorates very fast, and he grapples with the moral and existential implications of all his actions that he has taken. And it's not a it's not a simple action he has taken. It's like the murdering. Raskolnikov complex interaction with the other characters portrays like what kind of different things he's going on in his more psychological mind. And through this, Dostoevsky is introducing other characters. There is Sonia Marmeladova, a compassionate and religious woman who becomes the Raskolnikov's confidant and sort of the spiritual guide. And Porfiry Petrovich is the intelligent and cunning detective. He's investigating these murders. And Donia is Raskolnikov's virtuous sister. She's unaware of what the brother has committed, what crime the brother has committed. And the novel explores the idea of redemption through a lot of suffering that happens. And it's a lot of psychological suffering that Raskolnikov's journey is painful, but it is still very transformative one, leading him towards a potential rebirth spiritually. And his eventual confession depicts his sentence in Siberia, which suggests that true redemption and peace can only come from when we confront and accept our own guilt, whatever we have done, that it is wrong, and that's the peace leads to the peace of things. And the Crime and Punishment. It's a profound analysis of the human psyche and the critique of the socio-economic and overall philosophical conditions that existed in the 19th century during Dostoevsky's time. And it's the struggle between the faith, the ego, the morality that comes into the picture, the desolation, and it sort of will resonate with the readers many, many years from now and centuries from now, because it's a very timeless piece of literature that questions the depths of human nature, a psychological novel, and it's the complexities of the moral universe that is explored through these various characters and the overall novel setting itself. And it's a theme of morality, guilt, and redemption. When you dive deeper, you kind of question and putting yourself into that uh, protagonist's role. You can explore like what is the guilt, what is it that ultimately gives us that peace, and it happens only by accepting one's guilt. So that's Crime and Punishment. So the fourth novel that we are discussing today is The Demons, and The Demons has been translated into different titles as well. It's also called The Possessed, The Devils, and those are the references you will see in these multiple translated works from Russian to English. So the story itself is set in a small Russian provincial town. The narrative delves into the lives of several people who become entangled in a sort of revolutionary movement. So there is a revolutionary movement that is the undercurrent of this whole thing, which is leading to chaos and tragedy. So the novel centers around Stefan Trofimovich Verkovensky. He's a liberal intellectual, and his son Pyotr Stepanovich, who is far more radical and ambitious. So Pyotr Stepanovich is associated with a group of nihilists, revolutionaries, who are determined to overthrow the old order and throw away the old, eradicate the traditional values, and create a new society based on some rationalist principles. So as Pyotr Stefanovich plans unfold, the town is embroiled into this spiral of violence and moral decay. So one of the key figures is Nikolai Stavrogin. He's a charismatic and a nobleman, but he has a very mysterious past, and he exerts a lot of profound influence over the people around him, and especially the younger revolutionaries are very influenced by Nikolai. So Stavrogin is meanwhile connected to both the ends, the town's elite and also the revolutionaries. So that's where the moral ambiguities come in, and through the different characters in the novel, Dostoevsky will go to explore the psychological and the ideological motivations. So what drives the inner lives and the existential crisis of all these characters. The novel is a portrayal of the dangerous extremist ideologies and what things can happen once you take that path, and the consequences they have on the individuals and the overall communities, where there is a lot of turbulence and violence that is introduced into the society and the communities because of that. And the plot, as it progresses, the philosophical debates and the different personal dramas, they escalate into this climatic sequence of murder, suicide, scandal. All of these happen, and it's an overall instability that is brought around uh, at this time with this revolutionary idea, right? And also supported by Nikolai. The Demons is not merely sort of one shouldn't view it as a political novel, but a study of the human condition. And this is where Dostoevsky is very deep in questioning the nature of what it means to stay in power. What does that attraction to power mean, and the human capacity for doing evil, and also the nature of overall freedom. So it's a radical moment that existed in his time, and particularly he was exploring sort of the Western ideas that which were very foreign to Russian culture and spiritual life at that time, right? And what happens when you don't have these uh, in-ground ideas which have a grassroots level, wherein you bring in new ideas, the Western ideas, and the chaos and destruction that can result from abandoning sort of the moral principles in the search of political goals. So there is a very rich character development, intricate plot, and the philosophical depth. It's an enduring work which will be exploring. It explores the complexity of Russian society and what happens when you introduce new ideas in there, like the Western ideas, and they are not the grassroots ideas which have existed over many years. So it's a very profound read. So Dostoevsky, I have read over the course of many years. So it was a pleasure to bring some of these novels in today's video. So that's all for today, and see you soon with another author and their novels pretty soon. Thank you and bye.